Ladies and gentlemen, crypto degens and newcomers alike, the Oracle problem has been solved. Yeah, this is the Chainlink video. So, we're going to talk about Chainlink this video. I know a lot of people were waiting for this one for quite a while. I'm going to do some more Chainlink type videos probably, but this is just going to be the first one, I think, where I go over Chainlink and I'm probably going to title this one Chainlink's Rise to Greatness, or it's probably more like Chainlink's Rise to Relevancy, because to be honest, the network value is still largely untested, even if I'm a strong believer in Chainlink and what they're trying to accomplish. So let's get on with it. So I wanted to talk about what Chainlink is first, what the origins of this project was, and kind of go from there and move forward in time. So the time was September 2017. This was pretty much during the peak of the ICO bubble. Everyone was doing an ICO. Everyone was putting out their amazing, incredible idea that was going to change the world and rock the face of the crypto ecosystem forever. So we had a lot of projects. We had Kyber. We had 0x, which was pretty promising at the time. We had, and I don't really know what happened to 0x, so I should look and see what happened to them. So we had 0x, we had Kyber, we had Request, we had Walton Chain, we had Ion, we had Icon, we had so many projects at the time, and many of them did pretty well. And one of these projects, funnily enough, didn't do so well initially, but would later grow to be one of the highest in top performers of 2018. The top performer of 2018, actually, one of the only coins out of, I believe, 5 or so that actually rose in price during the entire Bitcoin bear market. And so this one obviously was Chainlink. This was the brainchild of Sergey Nazarov, who had, I don't know if this is true or not. This is some true like mythical level shit right here. But from what I know, Sergey Nazarov, not only are his initials SN like Satoshi Nakamoto, but this guy apparently bought smartcontract.com back in 2008. Now, as we know, Bitcoin was released in 2009. So this is really interesting. Just a small little factoid there, which I don't even know if it's confirmed. So if this is wrong, someone go in the comments and tell me I'm wrong. But I'm pretty sure this is correct. If you look at the Whois data, Sergey Nazarov bought smartcontract.com in 2008. So that's a really interesting piece of knowledge to know. This has a lot to do with convergent kind of ideas. This happened many times in history. So Nikola Tesla was developing radio waves at the same time as Guglielmo Marconi, the Italian. So they kind of developed the same thing at the same time, which is really interesting to know about. So this is kind of the same thing of like converging ideas from different parts of the world and different individuals coming up with something similar. In Satoshi Nakamoto's case, it was Bitcoin. In Sergey Nazarov's case, it was Chainlink. So that's kind of like the mythical origins of Chainlink. But there was this project. It was called Chainlink, and their target raise was $32 million. $32 million, and even before Chainlink was a thing, Sergey had already created, smartcontract.com, and the idea was that you could smart contract your project, I think was the tagline. And so you could take off-chain information and you could smart contract it, you could Chainlink it, and you could send it through Chainlink, which was this really basic primitive API at the time, and you could send that data on-chain through Ethereum. It worked with Bitcoin, it worked with Ethereum, and I believe it worked with Hyperledger as well. So it worked with 3 different distinct blockchains, and that was basically what smart contract was for the time, until Sergey decided that he wanted to take it a step further, and he realized what you needed to do was you needed to actually build an Oracle network. Now, for those who are watching, what is an Oracle? So an Oracle, very simply put, essentially takes off-chain data and converts it into an on-chain digestible format that can be used by smart contract platforms such as Ethereum, such as Bitcoin, because Bitcoin actually does have some smart contract capability, so on and so forth. And so Chainlink was basically the progenitor of this back in its smartcontract.com days, and now Sergey was looking to create a much more robust, much more full-fledged system. So with the backing of Swift, as well as some other really smart, intelligent people, such as Ari Jules, they basically made the Chainlink white paper, and they raised $32 million. They capped out, And the Chainlink ICO was kind of funny because there were people. I believe the individual cap was 7 Ethereum. You could only put in 7 Ethereum as an individual, but there were also pools, and these pools, people hadn't really figured out how ICOs worked at the time, and so there were lots of ways to exploit these things. And so Chainlink was one of the ICOs that was exploited, and there were public pools that weren't really public, that were actually private, that you actually could send your Ethereum to, and you would receive Chainlink tokens. There were direct deals between the address, let's say, or whoever, and Chainlink themselves. And so, or at least that was what the story was. In reality, people were really sending their Ethereum to God knows who, addresses that maybe could have been complete scammers, and these things filled up. These things, there were allocations where, oh, this address has 250 Ethereum. Whoever sends it, anyone can send some Ethereum to it and fill it up. And people did. People just randomly sent thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars to these pools because they were for many the only ways of getting in, unless you had some kind of private deal as a syndicate, so on and so forth with Chainlink, which were obviously very difficult to get at the time, given the amount of FOMO and hype around ICOs. So this was actually a thing that happened, and so many people on 4chan Biz saw Chainlink, and they were sending their Ethereum, their hard-earned Ethereum, to these random addresses and hoping that it worked. And it did. No one got scammed. That's the end of that story. No one got scammed. Funnily enough, that is the crazy thing about Chainlink, is that no one got scammed. No one took anyone's money. It's just something that you would never have actually expected that to actually work, sending your money off to some random guy and you actually got your Chainlink tokens back. So there you have it. So Chainlink ended up releasing, and they didn't perform too well for the time. 3x of ICO price was where they opened up around, and for the time it really wasn't that great because most other projects were dropping at 5x ICO, 10x ICO. Some were even doing 20x and 50x ICO over the first few months. Zilliqa was one good example of this, and so Chainlink was kind of this underperformer in this sense, where they did have that nice 3x, but it wasn't really anything to write home about. And so they had a small little bit of a run there. And what ended up happening with Chainlink was the project slowly, the hype started fading, and people stopped kind of talking about it so much. But it was still one of the pet projects, one of the darlings of Biz, 4chan, the Bizlets. If you don't know who Biz is, it's just what Biz is. It's this community of traders who all got into crypto around the same time and all started trading, and you can still find them today. It's changed a lot since those days. It's a lot more scammers and people who don't really know what they're talking about. But the Chainlink community is still going strong there. So Chainlink had gotten this almost cult following on 4chan, and I was one of the first on this. I was actually in the ICO. No, I didn't send my Ethereum to random Indians across the world. I actually had a direct deal with Chainlink. But I was in the ICO. I looked at the white paper and I saw what I thought was a very compelling project. In a sea of, and perhaps, I give myself some credit, but I also, at the same time, I also invested in complete garbage like B token and things like that because I thought I saw something in that as well. So take it with a grain of salt, figuring out whether I'm such a great fundamental analysis stock picker, let's say. Although since then, I personally would say I'm pretty decent at fundamental analysis, given all of the other coins such as Holochain, etc., that I've managed to pick out even during a bear market. So given all of that, I did invest in the Chainlink ICO during the ICO at the cheapest possible price. I don't think price ever went below ICO in dollar terms. It may have went near ICO in Bitcoin terms, but if it did, it didn't stay there for very long. And so Chainlink just kind of entered this long period of accumulation, and this was all from about January 2017, or whenever they distributed, so October 2017, all through 2018 and the bear market that we had. And the interesting thing is that Chainlink, they never spent $1. They never spent a single dollar. They had never, for marketing, the only thing that they really ever focused on was the actual product and building it out. So the only news that ever really came from Chainlink was news from Sergey or Rory, who's the community manager, discussing new acquisitions, new people that they had gotten onto Chainlink, working for Chainlink, new partnerships, new possibilities of people they were talking to, and interesting things that were arising from those discussions. And the other interesting thing is during the 2018 bear market, even though most of these altcoins died off, Chainlink, even though it wasn't performing very well, I think it was ranked somewhere around 150, or I think it was ranked 150 on CoinMarketCap, which is a very far cry from where it is now, almost rank 15. But it was ranked 150. It wasn't doing particularly well, and price-wise, and there was no marketing done. There was no any kind of shilling. But even though all of the other projects seemed to die off, if you actually looked at the GitHub, and they didn't really have a GitHub, Chainlink had their own method of updating their code base. I don't remember what it was called now. But if you looked at their repo was in the top 20 of updated repos in terms of updates, commits, number of changes, so on and so forth. And so through pretty much all of 2018, they were in the top 20 of people of projects who were actually delivering and actually creating something and committing something. And so I know some friends who talked to Sergey himself, and they have said that Sergey is really one of those individuals who's almost Vitalik level, where he is so focused on what he wants to do and what he wants to build, and he sees the value in that it's almost something of an obsession. And so for Sergey, it really was something like a labor of love, where he was really just working on this and hammering it out. And so that's all they did for the entirety of 2018. They had enough money raised from the ICO, and so they had plenty of money for the future stockpiled in their war chest. And so they just went to building, and that's all they did for the entirety of 2018. Closing around the end of 2018 and into 2019, they started finally talking to more people and getting partnerships and things like that. Remember, by this point, they still had spent $0 on marketing. So the price really wasn't reflecting of the amount of work that they were putting into it, which was one of the interesting things. One of the things that I do in my fundamental analysis is I will look at the repos, and I will see over time how updated these repos are and how many commits are being done to a project. That is usually going to give me a good idea of whether this is going to be a fundamentally solid purchase or not. Because if it's not being updated, obviously, why are you going to invest into it? If it is, then that means that people are actually working. So Chainlink had done all of this. Moving into 2019, again, no marketing, so the price wasn't really reflecting much of the work that they did, which represented a very good arbitrage opportunity for those who were willing to do the work of looking into Chainlink and actually bothering to learn about it, like myself. And so what they ended up doing was, during 2019 and early 2019 is when they secured most of these partnerships. So we're talking about the Google partnership that they had super recently. Google said they're going to use Chainlink. Oraclize themselves, which is a centralized Oracle provider, and the biggest Oracle provider, I believe it's Oraclize or Infura, one of those two are the biggest Oracle providers that is used by Ethereum today. And Oraclize is now going to use Chainlink. They now have their own, I believe they even have their own Chainlink node for supplying data feeds through Chainlink. And then we're looking at other things like Coinbase, the recent Coinbase listing done by Chainlink, which not very many projects can tout. So what they ended up doing was, all of 2018 they built. The first half of 2019 they were looking at getting partnerships, and then they started announcing them over, like one after the other, like boom, 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 boom. Chainlink is now working with this project. Chainlink is now working with that project. Harmony is now doing a Chainlink partnership. Acropolis is looking at Chainlink. I don't know if Acropolis is doing that, but we had a lot of other projects looking at Chainlink and using Chainlink for their data feeds, which is huge. Because if you think about it, this is going to be the topic for another video on why oracles are important. But I'll briefly touch on this here. The reason why Chainlink is going to be so big is it's kind of like Ethereum, where if crypto itself succeeds, it's going to be on the back of projects like Bitcoin and Ethereum, which are really going to power many of the dApps and many of the solutions that we use in the future. And I see Chainlink as one of these projects that is almost the fuel, almost the gas, because if you have an app that is getting its offline data feed from somewhere, it's probably going to be using Chainlink now because of the work put in by the team and the network that's been created. So I had a question. So again, I'll touch on that, on why oracles are necessary for blockchain in a future video. Otherwise, this video would be too long. But I did have a question from an individual who asked me in private. He basically said, why did projects like Ion, which was looking to do something like an oracle, or Zap, why didn't they get adoption in terms of partnerships and things like Chainlink did? So why did Chainlink succeed and these other ones failed? And I think the reason these other ones, and I wouldn't say that they failed, it's just that they didn't get the success that Chainlink had. And I think the reason they failed or didn't get the success that Chainlink has had is just because Chainlink, it was always a project that had a good track record. Even before they did the ICO, it was always a project that was focused on the building, that was never focused on the marketing, unlike some of these other projects. It was always a project that was more about the fundamentals of what they were building, and building something that had true value rather than anything else. And so if you look today, if you want to build your own Oracle competitor to Chainlink, not only do you now have to build a better solution than Chainlink, so you have to put in those thousands of hours that Sergey and his team no doubt put in, but you also have to beat the network value that Chainlink now has. You have to beat all of these incumbent kind of things. So I made a recent video similarly on why Ethereum was never going to be dethroned, why Ethereum was the Ethereum killer, basically. I think Chainlink is the same at this point. It has entrenched itself so deeply into modern day, into contemporary projects, into contemporary exchanges, Binance, Coinbase. So U.S. customers even get liquidity for it. They're able to buy Chainlink. I know a lot of individuals who don't really know much about crypto, but are asking me, how can I get some Chainlink? Where can I buy Chainlink? And so it's almost escaping into the mainstream now. And with that Coinbase, the Coinbase listing of Chainlink, it's only going to get bigger, I feel, from here. So for me, Chainlink has been one of the most successful projects. I've personally been extremely happy with it. It's good to make a guess on something, or make an estimate, or make a bet on something, and turned out that you were right. And for Chainlink, it was for a long time. It was the biz coin that no one really respected, because there was this community of individuals who really were kind of caustic and toxic, and they like Chainlink, so Chainlink must be garbage. And I think that was one of the greatest tricks that biz ever pulled on the world, was making them think that Chainlink was garbage, even though it was. There were clearly marketing efforts led by people who held a bunch of Chainlink, trying to FUD Chainlink itself in order to suppress price, and they actually pulled it off for lots of 2018 and most of 2019. But at a certain point, the fundamentals truly wins out, and so we've seen the price rise in Chainlink. So what's in the future for Chainlink? This was just a little final piece I wanted to touch on for Chainlink. I will do more Chainlink videos, but this was kind of a basic gestalt on what Chainlink was. But for the future of Chainlink, I see now this is the transition period for Chainlink between just a project that is technically impressive and has a team that is impressive, sure, into something that has a much better foundation, that's going to leverage the foundation that it has into an actual network. So we've had the mainnet that came out in May. Now what the important thing is to onboard even more people and app developers to actually use Chainlink and make this into a legitimate service. Getting large Chainlink nodes, getting validators who are going to be using the Chainlink network into actually creating something very similar to Ethereum, into this true ecosystem of diversified and decentralized individuals providing data to app developers, smart contract users, Ethereum, EVM devs, so on and so forth. So I think that's probably what's in sight, in store for Chainlink over the next year or two. Really curious to see where it goes. And again, Chainlink for me has always been a bet on blockchain. If you want to make a bet on blockchain itself, on crypto itself, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Chainlink, and maybe BNB. Those are kind of the top projects, the blue chips that you know are going to always perform and do well. So let me know if you enjoyed this video on Chainlink. Again, I will be doing more. Leave a like if you liked the video. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. And I will see you guys next time.